Hi, I'm Chuck Braverman, and this is another episode of Westdoc Online. We interview the best filmmakers in the world, mostly documentary, and today is no exception. And we're going to get to that in just a minute, but I want to remind you, we're brought to you in part by Realscreen Summit. They have a great event every year. This year it's February 3rd through 5th in Miami for the first time. Go to our westdoconline.com page, scroll down to the bottom, click on it. You'll get all the information there. The logo is there. You should register right away because the rates are going to go up soon. It's a great event. Today we have AMY NICHOLSON and her fabulous new documentary called Happy Campers. Hi, Amy. How are you?
I'm great. Thanks for having me on.
It's my pleasure. Where are you talking from?
I'm talking to you from the West Village in New York City.
Let's go right to Happy Campers, and let's roll the trailer first.
Okay.
I sent pictures to my sister. I sent pictures of the campground. I sent a couple pictures of the camper. She wrote back, "You lost your mind."
I got false teeth. I ain't flossing.
Well, we've been here for 21 years. And I'm sick that they're going to tear this place down, and every place in here, everybody's sick.
Did you ask the girls for water or something?
Put beer in there. Got it.
We've met such nice people. Oh my gosh, that's going to be the hard part.
As you can see by the trailer, this is a beautifully shot film. It's like one piece of art. It's like street photography in Manhattan, except it's on an island in Virginia with people in trailer camps. And I'm amazed at how beautifully shot it is. And I'm reading in the notes that you did this all by yourself, which is sort of stunning to think that you could get such great shots and such candid feeling, and being mostly the invisible documentary filmmaker. You know, that they're living their lives without mostly acknowledging the camera. How did you do that?
Well, I lived there, so that made a big difference. And I also didn't film for the first 2 years. I had an old Hasselblad that I take photos with, and I would go around and take photos of people, and then people got to know me as the camera girl. And, the old Hasselblad is, it's a box camera, and you're looking down, and if you want to get closer, you have to just move closer to people. And also, I'm a big talker, and I just like people. I like meeting people, and these people were so friendly and sweet and welcoming, and funny. And so when I got the camera, I went around and I took a lot of shots of, seagulls and boats and things like that. And it wasn't really until I knew there was something in that community. That community was so special. There was something magical in there. But it wasn't until, and I'll say spoiler alert a little bit, until we found out that that community might not last, the property was being looked at by developers. It wasn't until then that I really thought, okay, I need to get people to start to talk to me about what this place means to them. And then I approached a lot of people for interviews, and mostly people who had been there, some of them 40 years. And they were happy to talk to me because I think as the summer wore on, it became clearer that, there would be no Hail Mary and we might not ever have that place again. And, I was one of the brokenhearted at that point. And I think we commiserated with each other. And I think they were very happy to have someone there documenting how special it was.
So I'm a little confused. Did you go there initially to take stills, or did you go there knowing that you were going to be making a film and just eased into it via stills?
Well, I went there taking stills in the dead of winter, probably a decade before I ever went back. I grew up in Maryland, in Baltimore, and Chincoteague is the place that you go for summer vacation. So I was very familiar with it. And my dad lives maybe a half an hour away now. He retired on the Chesapeake. So I knew all about it. And I had gone down there in the winter, just sort of wandering around, taking photographs. And I went into the campground because, there wasn't anybody there. It was kind of boarded up for the winter. And then I kind of forgot about it. And years later, my husband and I were driving around with my dad, and we went down to have lunch on the island. And I said, go into that campground. I want to see that place. And by this time it was summer. And when I went in there, the life that was in there was fantastic. And I was drawn there more just for the place itself and knowing that there had to be something special about it if people were willing to live in rusty campers about 10 feet apart, and lots of them. There were about 150 families in there. So I went and I rented a place for the first summer, for the back half of the summer. And the clincher for me was my husband hadn't come down yet, but there was a big potluck and the whole campground came and the people were so welcoming and lovely and nice. And I decided I was going to buy a camper and live in there. And then I really, once I knew, I thought there was something to the place. I knew that people were special. There was no real story per se. I was just like, oh, this is such a great place and such a good portrait of what community really should be. So I started filming, but I started filming in earnest once I knew that it may not last. And that was really, I filmed the whole film in the last summer that we were there.
What made you think that you could, I mean, this is almost, and I don't mean this in a negative way, but what made you think you could do this by yourself? And it looks so good, and the sound is so good.
Thank you.
I mean, did you think...
I'm insane. As most documentary filmmakers are, I'm insane. It really wasn't a choice because I just didn't think it was appropriate to take anybody else in there. My husband was there. My husband helped me. He would sometimes pull I had everything in a garden cart and I would just wheel it around the dirt roads of the campground. My husband would help. Mostly he drank beer and played horseshoes and had a great time with the friends that we made. But yeah, I knew that it would be impossible to take a crew and get the same footage. So I did a lot of homework over the winter between my second and third years there. And I asked about, microphones, like what is the best shotgun mic? And a guy who I'd worked with on a commercial job said to me, spend more money on the mic than the camera. So I did.
What mic did you buy?
It was a crazy Sennheiser. I don't know, but it picks up sound at 20 feet away. I tested it.
Sennheiser 416, probably.
Yeah,
right?
it was beautiful, beautiful sound. And and I had lavs, and I learned how to use those. But even sometimes those fail. So there are a couple interviews, and I won't tell you which ones, where my lav died, or I forgot to turn it on, which happens. And I had to use what was in the camera. But I also had wonderful editors, amazing sound designer that I helped him catalog all the sound that was attached to picture that we weren't using the shots. I just would catalog those sounds and we use them in other places. It's such a rich environment. in the way the sound works there. And I remember having lots of meetings with him, and I would say, it is never quiet there. There are air conditioners and kids screaming up at the pool, and somebody's got a bonfire going, and somebody's riding around the roads on a buggy or a bike, or there's a party. It's always crazy. You know, there's weed whackers, there's everything. There's birds, there's, you know, boats, but it's always peaceful. It's the sounds that you love the most. It's the sounds of summer and community and people hanging out and having a great time and relaxing. So that was our compass for all of our sound design. And yeah, Matt Davies, he cleaned it up. He made it seem like I knew what I was doing. And it's a masterpiece of sound design, I have to say.
So getting a little geeky, I know you shot with a little 4K Blackmagic DSLR type camera, and you had a shotgun on that. And that doesn't have XLR inputs for audio. Where did the lav audio go into? Were you just recording it separately and laying it in after the fact?
Yeah, and then we matched it up afterwards. So I had these little lavs that the sound guys told me to get, that where you're not monitoring them, because I also don't work with headphones. I think it's rude. It just makes you look like a filmmaker. And yeah, you take a lot of chances that maybe you're not getting that sound. So I tend to just listen and then put the headphones away. And so I would check and make sure they were working. And I learned a tip from my husband, and I'm happy to share this with all filmmakers. My husband works on Broadway, and you know, the singers have those little tiny microphones that you can't see from far away. And they change the batteries at every show. Now you can take those batteries home and use them for your toothbrush or your, you know, whatever you're powering with those little tiny batteries. But you change them every time so that they don't fail in the middle of your interview. And so I stole that idea, and it pretty much worked.
Tell me a little bit about your background before you were making documentaries. You were in the commercial world?
Well,
what was that like? How did...
I still am. I work as a commercial director, and I still work sometimes as a creative. It depends. If people call me and ask me to do stuff, I'll do stuff. But I worked, for many, many years as a creative director in advertising and loved it. It's a really, really fun job. You sit around and you crack jokes all day, and sometimes you sell them to your clients and they let you shoot them, which is really, really fun.
What does the creative director do on commercials?
For commercial work, you sit around and you write a script and you make sure it fits in 30 seconds and you sell your client's product. It's a pretty fun job.
And as a director, do you work as a freelance for different production companies, or do you work with one company, or you have your own?
No, for one production company, I'm signed with Raucous Content in LA. And so they get me boards, and now I'm the person that someone brings their hopefully great scripts to, and then I bring them to life.
And I'm looking back at some of your previous work. Muskrat Lovely. I watched the trailer. I haven't seen the film. It's quite different, and it's similar in some ways, but quite different. You want to tell me about how did that come about?
There is a county that is very much just watermen. People work on the water. They live on the water. And by tradition, in the winter, they would catch muskrats and skin them. And they don't really catch the muskrats for meat or for fur anymore, but it's a tradition to know how to skin them. And they do it for time. And it is a very competitive event. And it's basically just this big weekend in this small town in the middle of nowhere. And the girls in the town have a beauty pageant on the Friday night of this big weekend.
I would be so honored to become Miss Outdoors. It's sort of like a life's pursuit.
And I just thought, wow, what a combination. A beauty pageant and a muskrat skinning competition. How could that possibly exist in one thing? And I asked that question many, many, many times over the course of filming. And after a while, I just stopped asking because it sort of seemed to make sense to me after a while.
And then there was Zipper, Coney Island's Last Wild Ride. What a great, I mean, again, I'm embarrassed to say I haven't seen it, but the trailer is fabulous.
Keep the old Coney Island that we all know and love.
He's erasing history. It's not just an amusement park. This is the founder of all amusement parks.
This week, Mayor Bloomberg unveiled his own redevelopment plan for Coney Island.
It's a vision that includes major new opportunities for retailing and thousands of new housing units.
And the story looks wonderful. And not being a New York local, I'm curious. I mean, it looked like they were going to develop the whole place, and that basically what the film is about. The locals didn't want it to be gentrified.
That's right. What ended up happening was, I mean, the film is really an explanation, which it didn't start out this way. But it is an explanation of how zoning works in New York City and in many parts of the world. And the outside neighborhood has not changed, which was the promise. The promise was, if we redo this and we make these houses and we do all of this, and even though we're going to get rid of all these people who have been here for decades, and even though they're going to lose their livelihood, it'll be good for the neighborhood because grocery stores will move in, and none of that ever happened. It's very sad. And the city spent upwards of $100 million in taxpayer money to get land back from a developer who was prospecting. So it was just a disaster.
It looked fascinating. And some of the plans for the new Coney Island look fascinating. After watching the trailer, I was thinking, gee, you'd think there'd be some kind of a compromise where they could have saved the integrity of the original place and made it a little better without moving everybody out. But that's another topic.
Sure.
How did the financing when did you start needing financing? I noticed you have Catapult and you have several other, contributors. How did that come together and in relation to, Happy Campers?
Well, it didn't. I'll be very honest. Catapult was one of my few supporters. The IDA was my fiscal sponsor, but there were several funds that they ran that I didn't qualify for. I'm sure
several. What did you not qualify for?
Well, they have several funds, but like Père Laurence, the year that I applied, they had a theme, and so my film didn't qualify for the theme of that year. When you wait a long time and you say, okay, this is my time and I have the film together and I'm ready and I need finishing funds, it's unfortunate, but they've been supportive in a lot of other ways. They got me a great rough cut screening at DCTV here in New York among 20 filmmakers, and it really saved the film at the time, that at the place where we were in the cut. It was very much a fun cut, but there was a flaw in it, which I can explain. And we got Isidore Bethel, who was the editor of What We Leave Behind, a beautiful film. And, the IDA and he really helped shape the film at that point. But yeah, it was difficult. It was very, very difficult, because I was applying during COVID, which is the same time that thousands and thousands of other people were at home, writing their proposals and applying for money for films that they had always wanted to make. And it suddenly got very competitive. And I'm sure you've heard other filmmakers complain about, the documentary distribution debacle. I find no issue with distribution. I found the issue for me was in the funding, because there are just too many people. It's impossible for the amount of people that finance films and fund films, and for the film funds themselves, like to get through all the applications. I can't imagine that job. I can't imagine. So I did my best. I approached people that had taken my films before. I went back to Catapult at the end, and they gave me a second award that helped me color the film. And then, I put the house money in, Chuck, because I had to finish the film. At some point, I needed to finish the film, and I didn't want to lose the community our Facebook page has become, kind of the surrogate for the community that was there. Today was Paula's birthday. Paula was one of the sisters. She lived in the D section. And I want to keep that momentum going. I didn't want the community to get lost. So I just decided to go ahead and finish it. And Doc NYC wanted to premiere it at the festival last fall. And so last summer, I used my own money to finish it.
So I always ask the filmmakers, and I usually get a decent answer, but you don't have to answer if you don't want it. But what is the budget of the film? And what?
Oh, I'm
roughly?
happy to say. It was between 5 and 6. It was not a lot. I shot it for almost nothing because I lived there. So I wasn't, renting hotel rooms or anything. I lived in the campground, and I bought my own equipment, which you can do now. It's relatively inexpensive. And I knew I needed everything small and, workable for me. So I bought what I knew I would be comfortable with so that I could keep it there and also practice with it. So I didn't rent anything. And I had to buy a camper and pay rent. But really it was just me. So, if you don't pay yourself, you can do a production for very little money. It really came in the finishing because I have a wonderful score by Troy Herrion and Jaron Narrows. I had Joe Rudge did music supervision for me. We re-recorded a song by Bread for the final credits. Nice Shoes did the color transfer, and they are a very, very the tippy top of, at least in the commercial world, that's where you go to color your film. And I was very comfortable with them. And there was a certain guy there I really wanted to use. So that's where the money went, was in the finish. And Matt Davies and those people, I have to pay them. They're professionals.
When you say between 5 and 6, you're meaning $500,000 to $600,000, right? Yeah. And what are the prospects in distribution and getting it out there and making some money back?
Well, right now, Grasshopper Film has come on board for educational and streaming. We have a streaming launch in September on Apple, and probably they'll add a lot of other platforms as we go. We've already had calls for, from classrooms, from people who want to show it because it speaks. There's some, even though it seems kind of silly, and there's a lot of beer drinking and hanging out and doing a whole lot of nothing and making cannonballs and marshmallows. There's some big themes in the film: economic inequality, class in America, basic dignity. And so I think that it'll do really well in classrooms, and we've already had a few of those calls. So Grasshopper's doing those two things, and they said to me, if you want to do theatrical, please do. We'll back you up. We just don't have the bandwidth to do it. And those lovely people at the IFC Center and the, wonderful Greg Lemley said they would run the film. So we have a theatrical coming up in August. It's very exciting.
Well, the Lemleys here I've known forever, and they have been supporters of independent film
amazing
forever. People. And they have a great half a dozen theaters here in the LA area. And it's funny, I noticed in your credits, one of the people you had as an advisor is Lauren Greenfield, who I'm a big fan of her film. What's the film about the couple building the most
Queen of Versailles,
house?
yes.
Queen of Versailles.
We never sought out to build the biggest house in America. It just kind of happened.
It's bigger than the White House.
2 tennis courts.
30 bathrooms.
Full-size baseball field.
10 kitchens.
Antique furniture.
90,000 square feet.
It's kind of like, in an ironic way, sort of the opposite of your...
Yes. Yes. He said the most poignant thing about Happy Campers. He said, it's like going into a little snow globe. And you just live in there for a little while and you feel what that's like. And I love that description so much.
Well, I wouldn't have used a snow globe metaphor, but I would say it is like being able to to be in this campsite with these people for a period of time without having to get on an airplane or a train or a bus and spend, 3 years there like you did, and to get to see sort of the best of it and the worst of it, of them sort of having to leave. So what are you working on now?
I am working on getting this film into the theaters, and I don't know what I'll do next. You know, the documentary world is a little bit in disarray right now. I have to figure out. I have to figure out where I'm going to get money from, because I don't. And I love these films. I watch all of the very heavy duty impact films. I watch films that are biopics. I watch everything. I mean, everything from, you know, whatever shows up on Netflix to Friends films that they made 20 years ago. But there are some films that I just don't really want to make, and I don't really want to make a heavy duty impact film. I like searching for the small things that to me make life worth living. And those are not big, like, urgent issue social justice things. So I have to figure out what I'm going to do next, how I'm going to make another film.
Thank you so much, Amy, for being a guest. I really enjoyed meeting you, seeing your film, and I look forward to seeing all your next works.
Thank you, Chuck. This was so much fun.